Brian Snyder's Creepshow Cavalcade.
Hey everyone. I would just like to start off and say welcome to Brian Snyder's Creepshow Cavalcade. And unfortunately, nobody has submitted me any stories to either my email or my subreddit. So I did some looking around and I found two good scary stories that I would like to narrate for you all here tonight. Now, one is a creepy roommate and the other one is a creepy neighbor story. And these are pretty good, solid stories. They're in good detail, and I would like to narrate them for you here on this video to give you all a sneak preview of what you will be in store for in this little on and off series. So, before we begin, I would just like to tell you all to sit back, relax, and enjoy the first episode of Brian Snyder's Creepshow Cavalcade. Let's begin. Number 1. The Sleepwalker. I recently acquired a new roommate. The entire situation should never have happened. But I needed someone to help with rent. So, a Craigslist posting later, he moved in. His name was Greg, and he disclosures to me that he did have some strange sleeping behaviors. Sleep talking, sleepwalking, night terrors. Funny thing was, I also had a history of sleepwalking, but only on rare occasions. The first incident occurred about 1 week later when I heard him screaming in the middle of the night. Since we both slept in desperate rooms on different sides of the house, the screams sounded distant, but not enough to scare me so much I ran to check on him. As I'd get closer to his bedroom, he'd stopped screaming, so I just went back to bed. For the next month, he had no issues. I noticed he had no friends or family that would visit, and I never saw him or heard him on the phone or texting. Then another random night, Greg started screaming. Same thing. I got up and started to go to his room, but he'd stop. Then one night, I was awoken by screaming in my bedroom. I couldn't see anything in the panic, so I turned on the bedside lamp, and he was at the foot of my bed wearing some sleeping clothes, athletic shorts, and a t-shirt. Scared me, so I started screaming and woke him up. He apologized and went back to bed. Then the scariest thing happened. About 2 nights later, I awoke to clanking. Sounded like tools and hammers tapping. I turned on the light to see Greg kneeling down in a corner, working on something with his hands. A few seconds after turning the light on, Greg froze. Then slowly turned his upper body around and stared blankly at me while I laid in bed. I was beyond creeped out, so I slowly slid out of bed and left the house. After sleeping in my truck down the road in an empty church parking lot, I returned to the house at about 8 in the morning. Greg was gone. All of his belongings were gone. No signs of him anywhere. It was like he never lived there. I didn't know any of his friends or family, so I had no one to call about him. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. When I moved out after the lease was up, I was moving furniture out of my bedroom. In the corner of the room where I last saw Greg kneeling down, I realized the floor vent for the air conditioning was loose. Inside the floor vent was an envelope with a ton of pictures of me sleeping. The pictures had handwritten dates and times written on the back of the pictures. The only other item was a whittled down wooden broom handle brought to a point. I truly believed Greg was preparing to kill me that night, and he realized it. Because it was the sleepwalking Greg that was going to do it, he left to save my life. It appears Greg had been coming to my room almost nightly and working on making the broom handle a stabbing weapon, and I never heard until the last night I saw him. I know most of you have heard plenty of stories of possessed evil dolls or cursed things that have caused who knows how much damage to their owners. But let me tell you, sometimes it's the most mundane things that can really freak you out. Unfortunately, I was too ignorant to help the one person who really needed my help at the time, but I hope it isn't too late to warn others, especially since it might be too late for me. There's a guy who lived next door to me. He wasn't at the end of the street or in some old drafty house. It was just a regular old colonial, but the guy was obsessed with Legos. I don't know if he was ever featured on the news or not, but he always had something new set up in his front yard. In February, he built a big heart with a life-size Lego man proposing to a Lego woman, which was actually pretty neat. In July, he reenacted that famous photo of the Iwo Jima flag raising. It was a little silly, maybe, with the yellow Lego heads on the army men, but again, it was certainly nothing to sneeze at. But Halloween was when he went all out. Lego wolfmen, Lego vampires, Lego webs. He even had all of these torture device things he put up, like the rack, an Iron Maiden, thumb screws, even things that wouldn't have looked out of place in a Saw movie. Thing is, not only did he build stuff really well, but most of it worked. The proposing Lego man's arm actually could move up and down. The Iwo Jima flag was bendy and could wave if pulled. And all of those Halloween things. Yep, the Iron Maiden could close, and all those little traps could actually twist and turn. Not that anyone could hurt themselves. All the spikes in the Iron Maiden were missing, and the thumb screw didn't actually drop. But I didn't even know that level of detail was possible. As far as the guy himself, he wasn't exactly what you expected from a 30-something guy who collected Legos. He was tall, fairly athletic, clean-shaven, no glasses, even smelled like he showered regularly. But I guess collectors come in all shapes and sizes. He was always friendly with the neighborhood kids, and he even let them play with the stuff on the lawn, as long as they didn't steal anything. Not that anyone really could, as on closer look, the Legos were all glued together. I assumed super glue, but whatever it was strong. I know one kid almost broke a nail trying to get one off once. It really made the neighborhood special in a lot of ways, not the least of which because at Christmas, he would send a few lucky kids in the neighborhood their own special toys. My own kids had been looking forward to getting their toys for a long time, but it hadn't happened yet. But then there was Chris. Chris was a teenager in the neighborhood who had a long history of discipline problems. He came from a broken home and was having issues in the foster system, and he lashed out a lot in school. I knew him because I taught there, and he was in my math class. When I saw him struggling with his lessons, I offered to tutor him after school in the campus library, and he seemed to respond to it, and to me. Still, I was sure that even if he trusted me more than most people, there was a lot he wouldn't tell me. I was pretty sure he stole little things like candy bars and other small criminal acts. Nothing I could prove, and quite frankly, I liked him, and the less I knew about what he did when he wasn't in school, the better. It was a week or two after Halloween, just after dinner, when I got a knock on the door. It was Chris, and he had something under his coat. Oh no, here it was. He asked me to sit outside with him for a minute. I got my coat and he sat down with me on a bench in my front garden. Teach, there's something weird going on and I don't know who else to tell. I can't go to the cops because I didn't exactly find out about it legally. He reached into his coat and pulled out a hammer. To look at it, it was like any other claw hammer you would see in a store, except it was entirely made of Legos, top to bottom. The claw was even put together with the pointy pieces I hadn't seen in sets in a long time. I've never seen a children's toy look so intimidating. It shouldn't have been, with all the yellow, blue, and red bricks making it up, but it had been glued together with very strong glue. I am pretty sure you could have done some damage with it. Chris, where did you get this? I didn't need to ask, since I already knew, but the answer he gave still surprised me. That Lego guy. I wanted to see all the stuff in his basement since I didn't get a chance to go over there on Halloween, but he had a door open in there, a door that you don't see when it's closed, going under the stairs. There's a chair in there, and this. He shook it. As strange as all this was, I didn't believe his story. I wanted to believe he was a good kid, but I couldn't. As weird as a Lego hammer was, there was nothing wrong with it, and he had broken into a house. I didn't want to rat him out, but didn't know how to tell him without being a jerk about it. Chris, how about you talk to me about it tomorrow after class? If you took that from the house, it's probably not going to help too much if they know you took that. He looked a little downcast that I didn't immediately go walking over there, but he didn't seem too upset. Okay, but be careful. The stuff in his basement, other than that, is weird. I think he's up to something, Teach, and I don't want anything to happen to you. After Chris left, I looked over at the Lego guy's house. I figured he was a little odd with all his stuff, but criminal? Probably not. What was there to worry about? I got worried when Chris was not in school the next day. Nobody had seen him. I called his foster home and they said he hadn't came back the night before. They had already called the police themselves, afraid he had run away. Now very concerned, after school I went to my neighbor's house. His Thanksgiving decorations, usually up by now, were conspicuously absent. I knocked, but he didn't answer. Just on a whim, I tried the front door and found it was open. I didn't know if I should go in, but considering what I had heard the day before, I wanted to be sure everything was okay. I called in, asking if there was anyone there. I got no answer. I peeked in. In the front hall, there were the Thanksgiving Legos, a giant turkey and pilgrim hat, but they were shoved against the wall like they were pushed out of the way in a hurry. I called out again and noticed the basement door open. If I had known then what I know now, I would have just gone back and called the police and let them handle it. I guess more than anything, I was concerned about Chris than I was about how strange all of this was. But I went into the basement. The place was full of Lego constructions. You could barely walk for all the things that were shoved into there, ranging from life-size Lego people to scale model aircraft carriers, holiday decorations, and God knows what else. He had never put up even half of what he had built on display, and quite frankly, I was glad. Some of the things he had ranged from normal to downright disturbing. He had a model of the Telltale Heart built, with the psycho staring at the floor while the police stared at him in horror. The French Revolution with the guillotine dropped and several Lego heads in a basket. And beyond those, some grotesque creature, all twists and turns, with no discernible head. It looked all wrong. A sculptured dolly would have had nightmares about, and it was eating Lego people in a scale model city. The Iron Maiden in the corner was shut, along with the other Halloween decorations, but there was no sign of anyone living anywhere. I went along the staircase, but I didn't see any room. I felt along the shelves attached to it, loaded with all the regular Lego fun sets you normally see, and found what felt like a handle built into the underside of one. It turned, and with a click, the hidden door opened. Inside was a small room, more than a closet than anything. A single light bulb hung over a chair, with a table next to it in darkness. I pulled the lamp cord. On that table was the hammer Chris had shown me the other day, and next to it was a pile of teeth. I gagged and ran out of the closet. I stumbled over the proposing Lego man and knocked him over. For the first time, the glue cracked and his hand fell off. Underneath was a shriveled hand. I scrambled up again and saw the Iron Maiden once more in the corner. This time, I saw a puddle beneath it, and a pair of eyes in the slot of its door. Even though I couldn't see them clearly, I somehow knew they were Chris's eyes. I called the police. All signs showed Lego Guy had left town that morning, though they put out an APB for him. They found more bodies hiding inside the Lego figures. I didn't want to know more when they said it could be more than 15, all mummified and sealed away in their toy coffins. And the torture devices? DNA swabs showed they had been used many times. They didn't know whose DNA it was, since they had no one to compare it to. But many samples had been found. And Chris, I should have listened to him. I was shaken when they pulled his body out of the house. They still haven't caught him. He could be anywhere by now, in any town, putting up displays. Maybe not Legos anymore. But I know he'll do anything to impress. I know because some boxes came in the mail for me. Well, not for me, but for my kids. They say, "Merry Christmas. Be sure the kids get these on that very special day." I don't want to open them, but I'm afraid what might happen if I don't. All I know is the boxes smell like glue. Very strong industrial glue. Hey everybody, I just want to say thank you for watching my very first episode of Brian Snyder's Creepshow Cavalcade. Now, to send me your real-life horror stories, be sure to send them to my email and to my subreddit at Creepshow Cavalcade. Links will be in the description below. So, if you like what you heard, leave me a comment, a like, and be sure to subscribe to watch other videos here on my channel at Brian Snyder's Buddy Cavalcade. I'm Brian Snyder saying, stay creepy, but in a good way.